California today is an economic titan, but in the 1840s, this powerhouse was a sparsely populated province at the extreme edge of the Mexican Republic. Looking at this 19th century map, you can see the geographic reality of the era. Mexico's northern border reached deep into the modern American West, encompassing everything from the Pacific coast to the Great Salt Lake. Thousands of miles east, the United States was expanding under the ideology of manifest destiny, the conviction that the nation had a mandate to push its borders all the way to the Pacific Ocean. President James K. Polk was the political architect of this expansion. He viewed California's deep water ports as essential to American trade and was prepared to use military force to secure them. This transformation was not a slow migration, but a deliberate, ideologically driven campaign. The sudden arrival of American political interests in the West set a ticking clock for an inevitable clash of empires. The first sparks of conflict didn't come from a formal army, but from a group of rogue American settlers in Sonoma who launched an unauthorized rebellion against Mexican authorities. They declared the independent California Republic, hoisting a makeshift flag featuring a hand-painted grizzly bear. This new government lasted for exactly 25 days. The settlers captured the regional military headquarters at Sonoma without a single shot being fired. This ease of capture demonstrated that the Mexican government, preoccupied by political instability in the South, had left its northern frontier effectively undefended. This local uprising provided the U.S. government with the opportunity it needed. Washington quickly moved to absorb the rebellion, sending the Navy and Army to transform a settler dispute into a formal war of conquest. U.S. forces initiated a coordinated strike. After seizing Monterrey, naval ships and land columns began a steady push toward Los Angeles. The logistical challenge was immense. Troops navigated hundreds of miles of arid, rugged terrain with limited supplies, moving through increasingly hostile landscapes. At San Pascual, they met fierce resistance. General Andres Pico led a force of California Lancers, highly skilled horsemen who used their superior mobility to ambush U.S. troops in a brutal, close-quarters desert skirmish. Despite these tactical setbacks, the U.S. military utilized its larger numbers and consistent naval resupply to overwhelm the local defenders. By early 1847, the U.S. had seized control of Los Angeles. The conquest was finalized with the Treaty of Guadalupe, which saw local California leaders surrender their arms. This military victory effectively ended Mexican governance in the region, replacing the existing Spanish legal and social systems with American military rule. While the fighting in California had ceased, the formal conclusion of the war was being negotiated thousands of miles south in Mexico City. Under the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, Mexico was forced to cede over 500,000 square miles of territory, more than half of its total landmass, to the United States. The document, finalized on February 2, 1848, transferred the wealth of the American West into U.S. hands. Just 9 days before this treaty was signed, a carpenter named James Marshall reached into the American River and found the first flakes of gold. The discovery happened here, at Sutter's Mill. Because communication was slow, the diplomats in Mexico City had no idea they were signing away the most significant gold deposit in the Western Hemisphere. Two nations had spent 2 years in a deadly war over a frontier, but the timing of the peace treaty meant the loser unknowingly signed away a fortune just days before the true value of the land became known. The news of the discovery reached the East Coast months later, triggering the 1849 gold rush and an unprecedented surge of global migration into the new territory. The scale of this influx is visible in the hundreds of ships anchored in San Francisco Bay, most of them abandoned by crews who left immediately to head for the mountains. This sudden population boom allowed California to bypass the traditional territorial phase, moving directly to official U.S. statehood in 1850. The $2 billion in gold pulled from the earth over the next decade provided the hard currency required to fund the industrial expansion of the American North. However, this economic rise came at the cost of the permanent displacement and legal disenfranchisement of the Native and Californio populations. California's modern status as a global powerhouse was born from this intersection of military conquest and extraordinary timing. The modern state sits atop a history defined by a 9-day gap that redrew the map of the world.